Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to our training today on working with renters. My name is Robert. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, if you have any questions, as usual, please unmute yourself, ask questions, make this an interactive class. If you prefer to just type your questions on the chat, you can do so as well. We are recording our session. I will load it up onto our YouTube channel later on today. Guys, we're going to go over all the procedures that we take as realtors when we're helping a tenant, a prospective tenant, secure a property. We're also going to talk a little bit about when we represent the landlord and what we should do. All right, so we have a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. We are going to, of course, get started in the MLS, right? I mean, we've already been in talks with a tenant and we need to find them properties. So you're going to go and you're going to tour some properties. Of course, you're going to go through the MLS, right? You're going to look at properties. And once the your tenant has selected a property that they want to place an offer, you are going to need several items, right? You're going to need a copy of their identification, preferably anyone who's over the age of 18 and is going to live at the property, you will need a copy of their ID. Uh, Only the persons that are going to be on the lease themselves will need to also have a screening done. So the tenant screening through Rent you'll be able to get that done, and I'll show you exactly where you can access the Rent so you can get the tenant screenings. You're also going to need 3 months of banking statements. Excuse me, sorry, 3 months of banking statements. You're going to need those. And then of course the contract to lease. All right. So there's a lot that we need to gather. Now, normally I wouldn't ask them for all this information until I meet the tenant for the first time and we view a few properties, right? If we haven't met them yet, if this was a lead and you don't really know them, it feels kind of uncomfortable to be asking them already for them to complete a tenant screening, for them to send you their banking statements or pay stubs, and then, of course, their identification. But once we have met with them and we've seen a few properties and they tell you, hey, Robert, I'm ready to place an offer, then yes, they need to gather this information rather quickly. All right. So where can we get the tenant screening done? We're going to go to our resources here and we're going to use RentSpree. Right now, I have it up here saved as one of my favorites, but you guys will have it somewhere down here and you will look for RentSpree. There it is. All right. So RentSpree is one of the multiple options that we have here for tenant screenings. And you're going to land in the RentSpree dashboard. And it's very simple. You're going to go to screening right here. And we're going to go ahead and click on screen tenant. And then you're going to add the property, right? These are all properties I've used. You're going to add the property that you want to perform a tenant screening from. I'm just going to go ahead and choose a property that I already have in here. I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And we're going to select create a screening request now. So you're going to come here, click on next. And then it's going to tell you right here what's included in the tenant screening. So you have a standard rental application. That's the one where the tenant's going to fill in all the information, their name, their current address, their rental history, maybe some references. The credit report will also be included, and evictions report will be included, and a criminal background check. All this for the amount of $40, right? $39.99. This is going to be paid by your tenant. All right, so they need to pay for this. There's an additional report that you guys can include, which is $10 more. And this is an income verification report, extended background check, reference checks through email, ID, and documents requests. No need for this one. So let's just go with the $39.99. If you do not want to include the, let's say, evictions record or the background check or any of these, then you can click on edit and just choose the ones you want. For free, you can always do a standard rental application. So if you come over here and you hit edit, and you are going to only include the rental application, well, that's free, right? This over here is what is $39.99. All right. So if all you need is a rental application, then that's free. All right, but in most cases, landlords are going to want to see a rental application together with the credit report, a criminal background check, and an evictions report. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click on next. And right here, you're going to type in the email address of your prospective tenant and you're going to send a request. If you would like to send a request via text message, you can always generate a link by clicking over here, text message, and then put in their phone numbers. You can put in multiple phone numbers, separating them by commas, and the system will send them a quick text. And if you want to just share a link to the application, you can click over here where it says share your application link. And it's going to produce a link for you like this, where you can copy the link and you can send it to your prospective tenants. Again, who's going to be doing the tenant screening? It's going to be the prospective tenants that will be on the lease. So if you have a husband and wife, both husband and wife need to complete this. If you have a father, wife, and an adult child, the adult child also needs to be screened. Adult meaning over the age of 18. Anyone under the age of 18 does not need to be screened, and they can be included on the lease as a just a resident of the property, but not a leaseholder. All right. Once this is complete, then you're going to get a notification via email that says your client has completed the tenant screening. You're going to come over here to Rent Spree, click on screening, and you're going to see right here that we have several of our tenants that have completed their application. And you're going to go ahead and open it and see their entire credit history, their criminal background, their eviction history, and you're going to download it to
Aló,
your computer. Okay. Yes, hello.
buenos días. Sí, pero estoy en una clase. ¿Me puedes
Guys, let's
testear, por
remain
favor?
on mute, please. Thank you so much. All right. So that would be Rent Spree, guys. Super easy to use. Again, the cost is $40 per tenant, and you get all this done. All right. Now, if your tenant says, "Hey, Robert, I already have my credit report," keep in mind a credit report, a valid credit report needs to be done within a 3 month period. If the credit report is older than 3 months, it may not work. And of course, if they tell you, hey, look, I have a police criminal background record that I went to the police department and I pulled out, then that may work as well. All right. Next step, of course, is going to be to collect all this information, right? You're going to collect the tenant screening. You're going to collect um, the proof of income. So it could be pay stubs, it could be banking statements, it could be W-2s, uh, or it could be a combination of all three. It all depends on the landlord. If they want to see banking statements, you're gonna have to collect banking statements the last 3 months. If they want to, and we have to make sure that it shows the income, right? The deposits on a monthly basis, and then the pay stubs also is a good idea. And if they ask for a W-2, then produce a W-2 as well. All right. So we have the proof of income, we have the tenant screenings, we have the rental application done through Rent Spree, and you have a copy of their identification. So the next step, of course, is going to be to produce a contract to lease. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and log into the MLS and we're going to pretend for today's class that we're going to place an offer on this property. So here we have a property that is for rent, right? You're going to read through the remarks. You're going to read through any instructions if they have any instructions, right? And then you're going to see here that the application fee here for the association is $100. And we have a total moving cost of $9,000. That would be the monthly rent times three, right? They're looking for first, last, and security. Um, right here, it's not really telling us that it's first, last, and security, but we can assume it's first, last, and security. If the agent tells you, hey, Robert, it's first month and two security deposits, and you prepare the CTL with first month and two security deposits. All right, so right here it's not telling us anywhere that it's like that. So we're gonna assume that it's first, last, and security. All right. So let's go ahead and click on the Form Simplicity logo, which is up here. And let's go ahead and open up Form Simplicity and show you how to prepare a contract to lease. All right, so we're inside of Form Simplicity. All the information for this listing has been auto-populated into a new transaction. And we're going to come here and we're going to verify the seller's name. So the seller or landlord, right? In this case, it's a landlord. So for that, we're going to go back to the MLS and we're going to click on IMAP. IMAP is this little icon right here. It is public records. We're going to open it and we're going to see who owns the property, who is the owner on record. And right there, we have the owners on record. You can always click on the parcel ID up here, and that's going to open up over here. And it's going to show you who the owners on record is as well. All right. So we're gonna come over here and it's Jose and Lydia Fernandez, right? It's Jose and Lydia Fernandez. So we're gonna come over here and we're gonna put in Jose Fernandez and Lydia Fernandez. All right, so we have the owners on record right there. And you're gonna come down here and you're gonna put in under purchase price, what is the rent amount that you are offering? Let's go ahead and offer the full $3,000 a month. And then right here, you're putting in your client's name. So for today's class, I'm going to use my client, Michael Jordan. Of course, if it's Michael Jordan and someone else, then you're going to place and that other person's name under buyer tenant name. All right, we're going to come down here. We're going to click on Save to a Transaction. And then this transaction name is the same as the street address. And I'm just going to come here and put in dash Michael Jordan. All right. And the property type is residential and the transaction type is lease rental, right? Save to a new transaction. And we are now ready to prepare the contract to lease. So if you were in my class yesterday when we were reviewing the as is purchase contract, right? So the sales contract, it's very similar. We're going to come over here to add forms packages because we already have the package ready for you. You're going to click on the lease package and we're going to go ahead and uncheck everything. We don't need everything right now. We're going to select the contract to lease and the compensation agreement, right? And then we're going to go ahead and click on add to a transaction. All we need right now, if we're placing an offer, is the contract to lease and the compensation agreement. Later on, when your contract to lease or CTL has been accepted, then that's when the actual lease agreement is going to be drafted and prepared, usually by the listing agent, and sent over to you so your tenants can review the lease agreement and have it signed. All right, so for now, we're just looking at the contract to lease, and let's go ahead and open the CTL. All right, so guys, whenever you see emails and exchange and you see people referring to a contract to lease as a CTL, just remember it's the contract to lease, right? All right, so here we're looking at the contract to lease. We're gonna just go ahead and review how to prepare this. It's very simple, folks. We have here the landlord's name, we have the tenant's name, and then this third line here in the date, we're gonna go ahead and put in the expiration date of our offer. So if today is the 28th of August, we're gonna go ahead and have this contract to lease expire on the 30th, right? My client is in a rush. We need to make a decision real quickly on our property. So I'm going to go ahead and just give them 2 full days. Well, really three because today's Thursday. So all day today, all day tomorrow, and all day Saturday to decide, right? So we put in an expiration date. And then right here, line two, we're going to put in the deposit amount, which is $3,000. And this deposit will be collected by you, right? And it's going to be held in escrow by Elite Ocean View Realty. How can you collect the deposit? The deposit is going to be collected after this contract to lease is signed. Okay, after this contract to lease is signed, you're going to collect the deposit. It can be collected in many ways. Cashier's check. So the tenant is going to go to their bank and they're going to get a $3,000 cashier's check made out to Elite Ocean View Realty. Or it could be in money orders. They can go to Amscot or Western Union or Publix, and they can get money orders totaling the amount of $3,000, and they're gonna make it out to Elite Ocean View Realty. And then the third option, which you guys receive emails every single week reminding you that we use an app called Earnest. It's an app on our phones that we can download. So you can, if you're an Apple user, you can go to the app stores and you can download Earnest. If you are an Android user, you're going to go to your Play Store and you're going to download Earnest. You can collect escrow through Earnest like if it were a Zelle payment. So it's electronic, and your client's going to deposit $3,000 electronically into our escrow account. All right. So that is $3,000 to be collected upon execution of this lease, of this contract to lease, sorry. And it's going to be payable to Elite Ocean View Realty. All right. Line three is the property address. And right here, this property will be furnished or unfurnished. Just have a quick check here on the MLS and see that this is furnished, actually. So, assuming that my client wanted a furnished property, we're going to go ahead and select furnished. Obviously, if the property is unfurnished, then we're going to go ahead and select unfurnished. All right. And then the property will be used by for residential purposes only, and occupied by the tenants and the following persons. So, if Michael Jordan is the sole leaseholder, but his minor children will also occupy the property, in line three, right here, you're going to put in the names of their minor children, right? The names of the minor children that will also occupy the property. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and, for training purposes, just going to put child one and child two, right? Obviously, you're going to have to put in their names. It is not necessary for you to collect identification for the children. It's not necessary for you to collect any screenings for the children. Now, if the children is 20 years old, 21 years old, then yes, right? But 18 and above, you need to collect. Under 18, you do not need to collect. All right, so the lease term is set to begin, and let's go with the middle of September. So let's say that we're going to begin the lease on September 15th, and we want to end the lease on September 14th of next year. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and select here September 14th, and let's change the year to 2026. All right, so we have a 1 year lease beginning on September 15th. And then line number five. All right, you'll see here $95 because if you use our template, we've already identified that we are going to collect a $95 transaction broker fee. All right, this transaction broker fee will be paid by your tenant. Now, if your tenant does not want to pay the $95, then you will pay it, and it comes out of your commission. So make sure that we collect the $95 from our tenant. Okay. Now this line right here, it's going to be the sum of everything that we place down here below. All right. So you're going to see this number change as we start to add the deposit and the first month and last month. All right. So beginning with the first month, $3,000. And I typically like to add here upon acceptance of CTL. You can choose a date, but you just don't know when this CTL is going to be accepted, right? So the $3,000 is going to be due upon acceptance of the CTL. Last month's rent, which is $3,000 once again, last month's rent is going to be due at move-in. So due at move-in. So the day that we do the walkthrough and we're going to perform the walkthrough and have the move-in, that's when the tenant needs to bring the additional monies. What's the additional monies? The last month and the security deposit. All right, due at move-in. Both of these are due at move-in. So they're going to bring a cashier's check for the total amount of $6,000 to the name of the landlords. All right, just confirm with the listing agent, to whom we should write the cashier's check to. And it's going to be your tenant writing a cashier's check of $6,000 to the landlord. Now, if there is a security deposit for the association. So let's say the association, the building also requires a $500, a $1,000 security deposit from the tenant. Then you're going to come over here where it says security deposit for association, and you're going to put in here, let's say it's $500, $500. And once again, when is it due? Upon acceptance. Let's just go right here, upon acceptance. All right. Upon acceptance, of course, the HOA needs to approve the tenants, and once they approve the tenants, in order for them to deliver the approval, the tenant needs to have already paid the $500 deposit. All right. Does all that make sense to you guys? Yes. No. Yes. All right. $95 is due upon acceptance of the CTL.
Yes,
So
yes.
perfect. So, are we collecting $3,000 or are we collecting $3,000 plus 95? Right? We're collecting $3,000 plus the 95, right? We're collecting the $3,000 and the $95 together. So you're going to tell your tenant to write us a cashier's check in the amount of $3,095. Once again, this is optional. If you do not want to collect the $95 from your tenant, then the $95 will come out of your commission. All right. So let's collect it. All right. So dropping over here, we're going to go ahead and place first month's rent is the $3,000. So the $3,000 that we collect up here in paragraph two is credited as the first month's rent. So when a landlord rents a property and they have hired a listing agent to market the property and they have agreed to pay 1 month compensation, that 1 month compensation, which is this $3,000 being held in escrow, is the compensation, right? So the first month is the $3,000 deposit. Okay. Number six, it would be $3,000 times 12. So $36,000 is the full year term, right? It's the full year term. Now, if your client is going to pay the rent in monthly installments, you're going to come down here where it says monthly, and we're going to place day 15 of each month for a total of $3,000 per month. If your client's going to pay the $36,000 in full, then they're going to come over here and write in full on the day of move-in in the amount of $36,000. All right, so this works more like if you're doing a short-term 4 month rental, right? And they're gonna pay all 4 months upfront, then that's how you will prepare it. Otherwise, on a 12-month rental, usually it's gonna be monthly on the day and how much is the monthly payment. All right. Are pets permitted or prohibited? You're just gonna come here, check. Prohibited, and then smoking prohibited as well. And then number nine is utilities. What utilities are covered by the landlord? That's what's going to come over here. Usually, it's going to be something like this. Waste. Come down here to the MLS listing. Rent pay includes cable TV, pool maintenance. You don't need to put in pool maintenance. Waste, water and sewer, and yard maintenance. So come back over here and now put in waste, put water and sewer, and cable TV. We don't need to put pool maintenance, so we don't need to put yard maintenance. This is a condo. This is what's going to be covered. What is the so obviously the tenant needs to pay for electricity, right? Um, then maintenance right here, landlord will be responsible for maintenance and repair of the property except for the AC filters. Usually the AC filters is something that the tenant needs to replace once a month, right? So they're going to, in more detail, right, who's got what responsibility in the actual lease agreement. But for a contract to lease, this is all we have right now. Then there's a $100 association fee. Sometimes it's $150. So make sure that you know what the association fee is. And we need the tenant to apply with the association by this date. So if we are setting our CTL to expire by the 30th, then we need our tenant to apply by the 1st. The 1st is a holiday, so let's just go ahead and fix that here real quick. We need our tenant to apply by the 2nd. All right, so we need the application to be in to the Association of Realtors, sorry, the Association of for that condo by September 2nd if we want to move in by September 15th. Okay? Number 12, additional terms. Any additional terms that you want to add to the offer, you have space right here to add it. So basically, if let's say there's the washer and dryer is missing, and the landlord promises to install a washer and dryer before moving, then you guys are going to type in here, washer and dryer must be installed before moving. Or if the air ducts need cleaning, or if the property needs to be repainted, then you guys can write here on the additional terms, um, what it's going to be. Also, I've seen where the security deposit, the $3,000 security deposit, is going to be broken into paid. It's going to be paid in like 6 different months or 6 straight months. So you can write that in the additional terms. Number 14, service member status is your prospective tenant, a member of the military or a veteran. If so, then go ahead and select yes. If not, go ahead and select no. Down here we have your information, your brokerage information, and then down here we're gonna have your tenant's signature, your tenant's signature, your tenant's address, their current address, their telephone number and email address. And then we're going to have the same thing for the landlord signatures, landlord's address, telephone, and email. And this is your contract to lease. All right, get it signed by your tenants, get it initialed by your tenants, and then send it over to the landlord agent, right? To the listing agent. Send it over to the listing agent and send it with the tenant screening, the proof of income, which is the 3 months of banking statements, the rental application, and the copy of their identification. That is how you submit an offer. You go to your email, you write an email, an individual email with all those attachments to the listing agent. Let them know that your prospective tenants are in love with the property, that they would like to rent this property immediately, and let's make it happen. You guys want to word your email in a way that it's pleasing to the listing agent to read and it gets them in a good mood, right? Don't just write, "Hey, Robert, here's my offer." That's a little dry. All right, so good. Everyone understands the process right now, right? Because the next process obviously is going to be the lease, the actual lease agreement. Yes. All right, awesome. All right, guys. So I am going to now open up a lease agreement. And if you are representing the tenant, that lease agreement is going to be sent to you. You are not going to prepare the lease agreement. 99% of the time, the listing agent is the one that will prepare a lease agreement. Okay? Now, what if you are the listing agreement? I'm sorry, what if you are the listing agent? Then, of course, you need to learn how to prepare a lease agreement. So, for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and add to this very transaction right here, I'm going to add a lease agreement. All right, so we're going to open up the packages once again. Let's go to lease and let's now select the lease agreement for an apartment, right? Because this is a condo. If it's for a single family home, then you select single family home. Let's add this lease agreement. Let's click on add to transaction and then continue. And now we just added the lease agreement. You know what, guys? I just noticed that I forgot one thing, and that was the compensation agreement. So don't just assume that you're going to get compensated half a month or 5%. Get it in writing. So you've asked the listing agent, hey, is the landlord paying compensation to the tenant agent? And they tell you, yes, the compensation is half a month. Then you want to prepare a compensation agreement, which is the compensation agreement, owner, listing broker, the tenant broker. You want to open it. So I had forgotten about this, guys. So my apologies. I'm going back. You want to make sure you send this together with the offer. All right. So who's paying the commission? It's going to be owner, Jose Fernandez and Lydia Fernandez, right? And you're going to come over here. You're going to say that you are working with your tenant and this should be done within the first 30 days. And the compensation will be, so they tell you it's going to be half a month. You're going to select option number one and you're going to put over here 50% of 1 month. If they tell you their compensation is 5% of the entire year's term, so it would be 5% of $36,000, then you would select option number two and do 5% of the full year term, right? So we're going with option number one, 50% of the first month. And go ahead and sign it yourself, guys. You do not need our broker signature. You are an authorized sales associate, so go ahead and sign it where it says tenants broker. Send it over with the offer and have the owner, right, of the property also sign off on the compensation agreement. Get it in writing, guys. Don't get to the closing and then they tell you, hey, no, we were only paying $500 or we're paying, you know, or we're not paying anything, right? Let's not get to that point. All right, so now let's go ahead and open up the lease agreement, guys. It's the residential lease agreement for an apartment unit or multifamily rental housing, right? We're gonna go ahead and open that one. All right, so here we are looking at the lease agreement. The first page is a non-lawyer disclosure. Basically means that you are not a lawyer and you are the one that prepared the lease, right? So if a lease agreement is sent to you by the listing agent, you are going to see the listing agent's name here, right? If you are the one preparing the lease agreement, which in this case I am preparing it because, right, for today's class right now, I am acting right now as the listing agent, right? Remember I told you that 99% of the time, if not 100% of the time, the listing agent is the one that sends you the lease. So if you are representing the tenant, you're going to receive a lease agreement already pre-filled. But if you are the listing agent, then you are preparing the lease agreement. So here it is, right? You're going to put in your name, your name, your name, your name, and your name. You are the one that prepared the lease. And then the tenant or the landlord is going to say, I can read English, or if I cannot read English, this was explained to me by said name, whoever explained it to them, right? Then the landlord is going to sign it and the tenant is going to sign it. And then the licensee who prepared this lease is going to sign it where it says licensee signature. This is the first page of the lease right here. Okay. So this lease is for a total of 12 months. This lease is set to begin on September 15th, right? and it's going to end on September 14th of next year. So let's go ahead and select September 14th and let's change the date to 2026. This lease is between the landlords, Jose Fernandez and Lydia Fernandez, and our client, Michael Jordan. Right over here, you are going to write the landlord's email address, the landlord's telephone number, and your tenant's email address and your tenant's phone number. All right. Right here is the address of the property. And the property is going to be leased together with the following furniture and appliances. So, since this lease that we're looking at here is fully furnished, then we're going to come over here and we're going to say all furniture, right? We're going to put in here all furniture, all appliances, and anything else that's included in the lease, you're going to put it in there. Okay. All right, rent payments and charges. Tenant shall pay rent for the premises in installments of $3,000 each, right? On the day of the 15th day of each month, right? If it's on the first day, then it's the first day. If it's on the second day, the third day, you write it in here, okay? Then tenants shall pay each rent payment, right? All taxes imposed on the rent, and you're going to write here the total amount of the rent plus taxes. So when does taxes come into play in a lease? When the property is leased for less than 6 months. If the property is leased for 6 months and one day, no taxes are to be collected. But if it's for 6 months or less, then a about 13% tax needs to be added to the rent payments. All right. All right, guys, moving on down here. This is a 12-month lease, so obviously no taxes, so you leave it blank, right? You leave it blank. Okay, so this section here, unless this box is checked, the lease payments must be paid in advance, beginning on, again, in advance, beginning on, if you're gonna pay rent in advance, meaning like we're gonna pay 3, 4, 5 months in advance. We're gonna go ahead and place the date here. Okay. If the tenancy starts on a day other than the first day of the month or on any other day, and you're going to prorate, you're going to write the proration period and the amount. So here's how you prorate. Let's say the lease is going to begin on the 25th of the month, right? And we do not want to make rent payments on the 25th, then you're going to prorate. So we're going to make payments every first of the month, but we're going to do $3,000 and you're going to divide it by 30, right? $3,000 divided by 30. And then how many days are we prorating? We're prorating the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, right? If August has 31 days, which it does, then the 31st. So you would put over here, we're prorating the 25th through the 31st, and it would be $30 times 7, right? So $210. All right. And that is your proration amount. Okay. If you're going to prorate, if you're going to start on the 15th, like we are, and we're going to pay our rent on the 15th of every month, no need to do this at all. All right. So that's how you would prorate, guys. All right. So security deposit, right? $3,000 security deposit. Advance rent in the amount of a pet deposit, a late charge, a bad check. So the advance rent is going to be first and last, so $6,000 for the rental installments of first and last month. Security deposit, $3,000 first and last month. And then you're going to say this is for rental periods of first month and last month. You're gonna see that there if you're representing the tenant and the listing agent sends you the lease, you're gonna see that there. If you're representing the landlord, you're gonna prepare it like this. If pets are allowed and you're gonna be charging a pet deposit, then you put in a pet deposit. A late charge in the amount of, so let's go with $150 late charge, right? For each lease payment made more than 3 days. So we're going to give them a 3 day grace period. Some of you want to give them a 5 day grace period. I don't know. So 3 day grace period, a bad check fee of $150, okay, is going to be charged to them. I don't know how many people pay with checks anymore, but it's still there. So let's go ahead and include it. And if there's any other terms that you want to write over here, you can write over here. You can actually do this, select and say rent to be paid on the 15th of each month by Zelle payment, and then just put in the phone number of the landlord. Okay. So rent to be paid on the 15th of each month by Zelle payment and put in the phone number of the landlord. All right. This here is also, all right, this Zelle payment is also gonna go on another line. All right. But if you want to include it up here, that's fine. You can do so. All right. So right down here is actually lease payments must be sent to landlord's agent. No, we're gonna go ahead and say what was it? Let's go with Lydia. Lydia Fernandez, and then Zelle payment. All right. So this here says is landlord's agent. All notices to landlord and all lease payments must be sent to landlord's agent. Forget about landlord's agent unless you, the landlord agent, you are acting as the property manager and you're going to receive the payments, then you do so. If not, just you're going to see here a lot on the lease, the landlord's name and their payment method. All right. If it's going to be if the rent payments are going to be made through wire transfer, then you're going to need to identify here the routing number and the account number for the landlord. All right. We need to give them instructions on how to do that. All right. Just make sure it's everywhere, right? Make sure it's everywhere. All right, guys. Perfect. Moving on down here, you have responsibilities. Landlord responsible for smoke detectors. Extermination. Tenants are responsible for locking keys. If a tenant loses a key, then they must replace the key. If the tenant somehow jams the locks, they must go with a locksmith and have it replaced. So any landlord responsibility, any tenant responsibility, and then there's a space here for other. In other, I like to write, if I represent the landlord, I like to write things like tenant is responsible for um fixing or for replacing, let's go replacing any items up to $250. All right, so basically if anything breaks in the property and it costs less than $250, the tenant is responsible. If anything breaks in the property and the cost is higher than $250, then the landlord will be responsible. All right. So it all depends on the landlord what they want to go ahead and put in there, but that's a good idea to include it on your lease. Right here, it also says it. Major maintenance or major replacements mean a major repair or replacement that costs more than $250. But you know what? I like to write it just about anywhere. All right. I like to write it just about anywhere. So right here, what are the utilities included? Remember the listing, remember the CTL, cable TV is included. So come over here and put in cable TV. All right. If this property was built before 1978, so 1978 or before, then we're going to have to do the lead-based disclosure, which is built into the lease itself. All right, so go back over here. This property was built, I think it was built, yeah, 1964. So we need to come over here and we need to say presence of lead-based paint or lessor, right? The landlord has no knowledge. Usually that's what you're going to see. And then lessor has no reports or records pertaining to lead-based paint. You're going to also see this one. The landlord needs to initial here, here, right? And then the lessee will initial here, right? So the tenants will initial here, here, acknowledge receiving this, okay? And then the agent, you will initial here. Who signs here? The landlord under lessor's signatures, the tenants under lessee's signatures, and each agent involved. Agent signature for the listing agent, agent signature for the tenant agent. All right, so if you're representing the tenant, there are several signatures, several pages, like 2 pages that you need to sign. Otherwise, most of everything is signed by the clients themselves. Landlord signature, tenant signature, tenant signature. Then over here, name of the individual. I am Robert, Elite Ocean View Realty address, and then my phone number. All right, so if there is a termination fee, so if this lease is going to be terminated early and you want to charge a termination fee, normally you're going to go ahead and put in here 2 months. Make it really difficult for the tenant to terminate the lease early, right? So we're going to charge a full 2 months termination fee. If you're going to charge less, then go ahead and put in here. If you do not want to charge any, then you're going to go ahead and select the second option. Again, who signs here? Landlord and tenant signatures. And then that's it, guys. This is the lease. All of these are different terms to the lease itself. And this page right here is somewhat of like a table of contents, right? It says residential tenancies. Want to know more about definitions? Go to 83.43. Want to know more about disclosure of landlord's address? Go to 8350. So it is quite large, this lease, and you can go to each section and read. Each page must be initialed by both landlord and tenant. All right. So all of this is part of the lease. There's nothing here to fill out. All you need to do is just make sure you know how to locate all the different parts of the lease and every party is going to initial it. All right, guys, once you're done, you're done. You're going to go ahead and click on save. If you represent the landlord, you need to now upload this lease agreement to your e-sign, have your landlord sign it, and then send it over to the tenant agent. If you represent the tenant and the landlord has sent you the lease, then you need to log on to Form Simplicity and then come down here to where it says files and upload the file, upload the lease into Form Simplicity, and then prepare for e-signatures. All right, someone has a hand. Question.
Me. Good morning, everybody. Robert, I would like to know if the contract has some section, the list, some section that includes if the if the tenant is gonna renovate or no, the contract, if in the case that the tenant is not gonna make any renovation, that he has to let the owner know, for example, 2 months in advance, or if there is an information that we need to include.
The tenant, so the person renting the property is going to renovate. They're going to spend money to renovate the
Okay,
tenant or the
okay,
landlord.
okay. If the tenant
Uh-huh.
is not making a renovation of
Or,
the
a
contract,
renewal, not
a
renovation.
renewal, they will,
Renovation is when you are going to improve the property, fix it, renovate. So
okay,
renewal. So
I'm doing, thank you.
a 1 year lease is good for 1 year. If you plan on renewing the lease, it is up to the landlord to identify to communicate with the tenant 60 days in advance. Are you going to renew the lease? Because if they're not going to renew the lease, then the tenant needs 60 days in advance to know that the lease is not going to be renewed.
And that's what I'm asking you, where, in
It's
what
on the
part
lease.
of
It's
the
on the lease.
contract
It's on the lease. You have to read through it.
is included in the general
Yes.
information?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
And
thank you.
all those pages that you saw, it's in there. Um, a 1 year lease that reaches the maturity date all of a sudden becomes a month to month. So if there's no renewal, right? If they already did all 12 months and it has not been renewed, now the tenancy becomes month to month. In a month to month situation, all the landlord needs is 30 days in advance to let the tenant know that they need to move. Just like the tenant, all they need to do is let the landlord know 30 days in advance that they are going to be moving. This is in a month to month situation, but in a lease situation, it's 60 days. Okay. And then
Okay,
also, if the landlord plans to raise the rent, right? If the landlord plans to raise the rent from 3,000 to $3,100, they need to let the tenant know 60 days in advance as well. Okay.
okay, thank
All right, perfect, guys. So once this lease is fully signed, then the tenant needs to send the lease to the association for that condo or for that homeowners association and apply, right, for tenancy. All right, so for residency. So they cannot apply with the association before the lease is signed. So first matter is to get the lease signed, get it done as quickly as possible. Once the lease is signed, the tenant can now apply with the association and they are going to be asked for the lease itself. Like they're going to be asked to upload the lease. So we need the lease. Okay. They're going to pay the $150 association fee. In this case, it was $100. And if there's any deposit required by the association, they're going to also pay the $500 deposit after they've been approved. They're not going to pay the deposit before they've been approved. They're going to pay the deposit after they've been approved. Once the approval letter is in, right? Once the association says, we approve Michael Jordan, we're now ready to move in. We're ready to move in. So we just need to wait for September 15th and we do the move in. What are you going to need for move in, guys? You're going to need the tenant to take the security deposit and the last month. So again, $6,000 in this case in a cashier's check written to the landlord. Sometimes the landlord says, hey, just send me a Zelle payment of the $6,000. Well, that's a little difficult. Not many banks allow a Zelle payment of $6,000. So cashier's check, uh, money orders is going to be difficult too, because I think you can only get up to $1,000 in money orders. So you would have to get six of those, right? So cashier's check, not many people are going to accept a personal check. Or wire transfer. They can just set up a wire transfer, routing number and account number, and do the wire transfer. All right, guys. And then after that, of course, you're going to go with your client. You're going to do the walkthrough inspection. Make sure that you have a walkthrough inspection form signed by your tenant that everything is in place. Take good pictures of the property. Make sure that everything is in working conditions. If there's something that's broken, write it down on the walkthrough inspection. Make sure the landlord is going to fix it and they tell you when they're going to fix it. And if everything is in agreement, then your tenant can move in. Once your tenant moves in, guys, you're going to send the transaction coordinator, send our transaction coordinator and copy me on the email. Send us a copy of the walkthrough inspection, the lease agreement, and a disbursement form. And like this, we can facilitate payment for you, and you'll be paid. All right. Guys, if you have any questions throughout the entire process, I am here. You can always call me. You can text me, call me, email me, and I'm available to answer all of your questions. I know we went through a lot, but trust me, it gets easier as you start practicing, as you get involved, as you do one or two or more of these transactions, it just becomes automatic. It becomes automatic. All right. So we had quite a few of you attend our training today. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap it up?
I have a quick
I
question.
actually have a question.
All right, several of you have a question. So let's go with first person that said, I have a question. We'll answer all of your questions.
Okay, so as far as the tenant retainer agreement,
Okay.
okay, so I know that that specifically goes towards me as the agent prior to closing. Is that something that we turn into Elite
Transaction,
first?
right, transaction. So the tenant retainer agreement, thank you, Kenneth, for bringing that up. I skipped it because, we normally don't really use it, but it's similar to the buyer broker agreement. You can actually lock your tenant in with a retainer. And if they agree to pay your retainer, here it is, prospective tenant retainer agreement. It's inside of the lease package. If they decide to work with you and pay you a retainer, so let's say the retainer is $500, they're gonna write you or write Elite Ocean View Realty a check for $500. You're gonna give it into our office, and then we pay you. That $500
And
is non-refundable. So basically, they're hiring you, and they're gonna pay you, in this case, $500 just to ride around and show them properties.
and does that get deposited once you close on the property, or is that prior?
You can do it both ways. You can do it prior, or you can do it afterwards. So if they agree to pay your retainer fee, I recommend that you collect it right away and bring it into us, get a deposit so we can pay you. And like this, you have gas money and you have money for your time. Not many tenants are going to agree to pay your retainer fee, but if you do present them this opportunity and you feel like you want to collect it, and then get paid for it. Okay?
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. All right. We had other questions. So anybody else?
I, I have one more question.
Yes.
How much do you charge if somebody's gonna do like a 6 month rental? Like if a landlord's hiring you to
Oh,
rent their property for 6 months, how much do you usually charge?
excellent question. And I do have a class coming up very shortly on residential lease and how to get a listing and what to charge. But that's an excellent question. So 10%. So you're not going to do the first month because
10%?
that's a little bit more expensive for them. So 10%. So if you're doing, let's say it's 3,000 a month, 3,000 times 6 months, it's $18,000, and you're going to be charging 10%. Remember, it's negotiable. Everything's negotiable, right? But you're going to try and charge
Mhm.
10% of the $18,000.
Okay, awesome. Thank
Don't
you.
do don't do the first month because that's a lot more money for them. I mean, 10% of $18,000 is $1,800. versus the first month, which is $3,000. Now, the other way around, if it's a 12-month lease, 10% of $36,000 is $3,600 versus the $3,000 first month. So if you're doing a 12-month lease, normally it's going to be 1 month in compensation. If they agree to a 10%, then that's great. That's more money for everyone involved. But if it's a 6-month lease or a
Okay.
short-term rental, it's going to be 10%.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Crystal, I saw that you unmuted yourself. You're good?
Just to piggyback off what she said, so that conversation, so the 10% that still gets split between you and the other agent involved, correct?
If that's what you agreed on. Remember, everything is negotiable. But usually, yes, if you're going to collect 10%, it's to be divided by both agents working the transaction.
Okay.
All right. Remember, they are not obligated to pay the tenant broker. So if you're representing the landlord, they are not obligated to pay the tenant broker. Just like if you're representing a seller, the seller is not obligated to pay the tenant broker. But in most cases, they do want to pay, and fair is fair. You're going to go ahead and divide it in two. All right. All right. Any other questions, guys? You have me here. This is the time.
I'm trying to find out, Robert, about filling out a month-to-month lease.
A month-to-month lease.
Mm-hmm.
So the same lease, instead of putting a date, or like let's say you're doing a contract to lease,
Mm-hmm.
instead of putting a date, just write month to month.
Month to month. Okay.
Begins on September 1st, ends on month to month.
Okay. Understood.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I don't know how they're going to pay you on that though.
That's what I need to know.
Like, how are you, if you're representing a tenant, how are they going to pay you on a month to month if
They plan
no,
on staying there for the year, but then
then
the
lot, then
landlord really is like, we're giving you the option of like, if you want to get out or opt out of the lease, it's month to month. I really didn't understand the whole detail, but
you can write it in the additional terms. So do a contract to lease for
mm-hmm,
1 year, and then the additional terms.
it's month to month.
Uh, right. Tenant has the option to end lease early with at no additional charges.
Okay, thank you.
So like that, when the lease is prepared, remember that early termination where I put in
Six
$6,000?
thousand, yes.
It's gonna say zero.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. We're all good. All right.
Yep.
All right, perfect, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Great attendance today, great involvement. As usual, like I said, if you have any questions, please call me, text me, email me. I'll be more than happy to help. All right, guys, reminder tomorrow at our Coral Gables office, myself and Teo, we're going to be running a class on the appraisal process. It's funny because I'm actually going through two appraisals right now, and I'm crossing my fingers on this, waiting for the results. But tomorrow we're going to be doing the appraisal process and what to expect in an appraisal, and then how to challenge a low appraisal value. So I look forward to seeing you guys. We have one training each month in person at our Coral Gables office. This is an opportunity for us to get together. So I hope that some of you can make it. Otherwise, we'll see you in our next events. Remember, we have ongoing broker presentations at new construction projects. Look at your email and RSVPs for these events as well. All right, guys, have a wonderful day, everyone.